automation and start as a data DBA and still working actually in different database included with Oracle. Author for 2 books and now working on my third one. Also presenter and contributor in Oracle community and publish different article with Oracle and blogger for sure. This is the books. The first one was Oracle penetration testing, and the second one, which is Oracle database application security. So let's start actually talking about our topics today, what we will talk about. The first thing, actually, we need to understand the DevOps. What is the DevOps? Why I have to use the DevOps and when I should use the DevOps. And the main question actually, which has been asked a lot, which is how the DevOps will make my life or as a DBA much easier. I'm going to give you also automation examples about the different tools that you could use using DevOps with databases. Okay, so let's start. The first thing, when you ask about the DevOps, what is the DevOps? The DevOps, it's referred to development operation, and you can actually say it's enterprise software development phase. And it's used actually to like a type of agile relationship between the development and the IT operation. Like there is always a gap between the development and the operation, usually between, for example, the communication skills and also between like the task, which is interacting between each of them. The goal of the DevOps actually to change and improve the relationship, okay, and better communication between these two teams, okay, and two business units. But most of the people actually saying that the DevOps it's new. DevOps it's not new. The concept of the DevOps start actually with the first computer programming code, okay, and it's created like one of the first developer job in 1967 with a company. Okay, the network that become actually the basis of the internet, which is called the ARPANET, and it's created like a network engineering job and network operation center created. In 2000, actually 13, the concept of the DevOps has been moving forward and moving fast because Google hired a leader, which is called Penn Taylor, and to lead the first set of SRE, okay, and which is a very common job actually related to now to the market, to run a production environment and to make sure actually everything is stable in the environment from development to production to everything. And the team was responsible for maintaining the environment up to 99% while working with a developer to ensure everything actually working smoothly. In 2009, okay, the company, which is called, everyone know it, Flickr actually, it's start working merge between the development and the operation by DevOps concept. This is how the DevOps actually start spreading around the world for the first time. The solution was provided or proposed by O'Reilly, okay, in the conference, and the two suggested actually that to integrate, okay, the development and the operation between each other. Again, in 2019, in Belgium, actually, another engineer called Patrick organized like a small conference, actually, and I joined that conference. Actually, it was a very small conference, like having around 25 person only. It was like talking about the agile system administration to advertise actually the concept of the conference on Twitter. He created like the concept of the DevOps or hashtag for the DevOps from development and the operation. Okay, and since that actually this concept has been actually spreading around the world very fast. From 2017 till now, okay, the concept has been actually proving in the market, and now as you can see actually like as a DBA job you need to know some of the tools. A lot of the DBA now actually that I know using, for example, different tools that we will talk about, they are starting actually moving to use these tools to automate everything and make the life is much easier. Like how the DevOps actually interacts with the operation. As you see here, actually, we have two branches. We have like development and we have the operation. Each one of them actually having like uh, a different cases. Okay. For example, one of the team has the lack of the visibility, let's say, and the other one having a different task and so on. So the DevOps, it's like intend to be a cross-functional mode of working in the modern software development, like where the development and the operation start to share the rules and the concern and the process for each other. So like it's very difficult to tell for the application, like when the development and the operation team had a different process, for example, or opinion. For example, when a development submit a request, the cycle for the request actually in the traditional way, it's extend due to the record of the communication between the teams and the development and the meetings and these stuff. So with the concept of DevOps, all of this, it's helped to reduce the risk and the cost of the service after deployment. So why? Because there is no handover, because the development actually we'll talk about, the development will work in the interacting with the operation. As you see here, for example, for the operation, we have the deployment, we have the process for or the phase operation, we have the monitor. For the development, we have the build, we have the code, we have the test, but we have the common thing, which is the release between two of them and the planning. These actually has been solved by the DevOps. Okay, and this is actually like saved a lot of time for the project manager and for the company by reducing the cost actually of the deployment and reducing the time of the deployment. And with the example that you will see in like in the slide that's gonna come next, you will see actually how much the DevOps it's gonna like automate everything for you as a DBA with a daily task for you from, for example, installation, backup, uh, monitor the server, or running at least like one command on 100 server or more. So why I have to use actually the DevOps? I have used to use the DevOps for a different reason. The first one, which is speed deployment the process. The organization usually are trying to speed or spending too much time with a manual process around testing and deploying software. DevOps actually can automate the task to not only just speed delivery, but improve the quality actually, because the team gonna increase or focus more on the quality, enable the fast response to change the business requirement. Uh, Only 17% actually of the IT believe they can deliver fast enough for any business. Okay. But with the DevOps, actually, you can make it much faster with 30 times more because you are focusing also on the fast deployment, and it could be also zero human interaction, reduce the risk for the production. This is actually a very important point because the manual process, when you are doing the manual process or the traditional way, okay, it's making a lot of human interaction, which cause, for example, a quick clear, like increasing the risk, for example, and you have like a different team had to study, for example, the project, and this will cause a delay, and the delay actually gonna cause a lot of mistakes and the poor quality of the code and the change of the configuration and of the management and of the release integration. All of this can be solved actually with automation or the DevOps because it will address actually all of these unplanned output by improving the way of working and improve, for example, the automation and the continuous deployment. Also, the good about the DevOps that it's break down everything, okay, by, for example, the communication and collaboration between the teams. So the DevOps can eliminate actually arguments and finger pointing between the development and the operation team. So this will like result in more effective troubleshooting and faster problem for resolution or anything. Uh, Usually, when you are talking about the DevOps, okay, you are here something called agile. So, is the agile the same actually as a DevOps? The simple answer for this actually it's no, because both of them actually have a different terms, and it would be actually incorrect to say that they are both the same. The DevOps is like the concept to manage end-to-end engineer a process, while the agile actually it's like to manage a complex projects. Agile in the fact actually like it's one of the most essential part of the successful for the DevOps. So it's considered as a part of the DevOps, and the table actually include a couple of different okay for the DevOps and for between the DevOps and the Agile. As you see here for the DevOps, for example, it's related to technical practice to achieve end-to-end solution, while the Agile on the other hand actually it's working and focus on Scrum methodology and sprints. The DevOps actually it's focusing on operation, okay, and development, and make it as a small part between each other and the configuration management and etc. Okay, while the agile it's actually linked between the design and the DevOps and the project management and more focusing actually on the management level. Okay, the DevOps also it's aligned between the operation stability, such as, for example, the scripting and the deployment and make stabilization for the application. While actually the agile, it's aligned the development with the business priority and focus on speeding up the development process. And the most important thing actually for the DevOps, which is helps to bridge the line between what we say before about the development and the operation from monitor to deployment to integration to infrastructure to everything related to technical. But in the agile, actually, it's focusing between let's say the management and the technical team. So usually you are using different methodologies such as Scrum, okay, and the Scrum actually it's divided by sprints. So every sprint actually it's having a different task, and the task actually assigned to different technical person. So this will be like divide the DevOps to small tasks every time. And with the DevOps, actually, the main purpose for it, it's like to speed up everything from the automation to the tools, to the application, for example, to automate the deployment, continue with the integration between the application. While actually, for example, as we say, the agile is focusing more on the gap between the DevOps and the management, actually between the technical. So this is the main difference. So you can say actually is the DevOps is agile? Absolutely no. Here we're gonna start actually talking about the main concept, which is why DevOps with Oracle and why actually I have to use DevOps with Oracle. Okay, uh, as a DBA, all of us actually facing a repetitive task every day. For example, from checking the backup, or for example, doing installation for a new server, or run the command actually to check all the output, for example, on different server, uh, or the manual work from the installation, you can do it, or for example, the output will be either, for example, too much or less. All of this actually can be solved with you while using actually DevOps tools. And also some of other reason of using DevOps, it's eliminating the human interaction. When you are automating, for example, the task, it's gonna take time first, but after this, you're gonna be solved like a lot of problem. For example, no need, for example, to keep it checking or do the manual work. All you have to do is this tools, and the tools actually gonna run everything for you automated. The errors actually, for example, like with the DevOps tools, there are some tools actually or monitor tools that it's specific actually. For example, you can configure it to to just read the errors and the logs actually in deep or debugging. Different, for example, with paths, for example, you can do any installation actually to different paths. It's no worry, or in the settings. So no need actually, for example, like to use every time. to do the installation with different settings. All you have to do is, for example, to set up this tools, configure this tools, and start doing the configuration depend on your setup. So what is the most actually you DevOps tools? Like there are more tools actually you can use with DevOps, okay? But this is the most common tools that is using with Oracle. We have Terraform, we have Puppet, we have Ansible, and we're gonna today talk about Terraform and Ansible. We have Salt Stack, we have Jenkins, and we have Chef. Each one of them actually have a different purpose. With the DevOps, like it's having a different category. For example, we have infrastructure as code, we have continuous integration, we have continuous deployment, and we have configuration management. For example, infrastructure as code, you are talking about Terraform, it could be used with a cloud instead of building everything manual. With a cloud, like it's a tool like that enable you to build, change, and versioning the infrastructure safely and with speeding up everything. And also Terraform can manage actually like the existing and popular service providers such as OCI, AWS, Azure, or whatever actually cloud solution is. With a custom also, it can be used with a custom in-house solution. Configuration files also that describe, we will talk about it with the Terraform. Ansible also is a very common tool that used with Oracle as a DevOps. It's an open source IT configuration management and deployment tool. To provide a large productivity actually that for automation is challenge. This tool is very simple actually and very powerful, okay, to automate everything and the complex solution for any IT company. With Jenkins, okay, it's also open source automation. It's related to the continuous integration or the continuous deployment. It's helped you to automate, for example, the software deployment related to building, testing, and deploying, and continuous integration and continuous delivery for your code. For example, to deploy it on the web server or wherever you want, depending on where you want, or using Docker or whatever. Puppet, it's a configuration management. Actually, it's like in the same category with Ansible. It's ensure that all the system are configured and desired as a predictable state, and it could be also automatically deploy a software on the system and implement also infrastructure as code, which means you can test the environment and ensure everything is deployed accurately. Chef also, it's considered as one of the configuration management tools with a category with Ansible. It's dealing with a machine setup on the physical server, virtual machine, in the cloud also. Many company actually using Chef as to control and manage their infrastructure. But they like with the Chef, you have three core components. Okay, you have the Chef server and the workstation and the nodes. That's make it actually more complex than Ansible and Puppet. With the Chef server, actually you are a center of the operation. You have like with the Chef server, the store and the manage and the provide the configuration data to all other Chef components. With a workstation, it's like a personal computer or virtual machine, okay, where all the configuration or the code is created and tested and then it change. And there are could be like, for example, many workstation as needed also, or whatever you want. With the nodes, which is the last component for Chef, it's are the server that they are managed by Chef. These machine, it could be like, for example, push the change to, and it has a multiple also machine that require, for example, for the automation, and it can be managed virtually, or the container, for example, it could be container, and the installed also Chef, it should be installed on each of the nodes actually. The last one, which is the Salt, also it's another tools for configuration management. It's used for a central repository, okay, to provision, for example, the new server and other IT infrastructure to make the changes, for example, to the existing one and the install software, okay, IT depends on the IT environment, including, for example, a physical or the virtual server, as well as the cloud. What is like the good? Each tools actually depend what you know. Each tools having, for example, advantage and disadvantage. We will talk about them. As you see here, with Terraform, it's agentless. You don't have actually to install any agent, and it's focused more on the admin work. For example, it's infrastructure as code. With Ansible, it's agentless, okay, and it's focused also on the on the admin work and with the configuration management. If you want to do, for example, some configuration on the server, no need to do it, for example, one by one server. All you have to do is configure the Ansible, and the Ansible will run the command on 100 server, depending on where you want. With Jenkins, it's agentless also. It's focusing on the development. It's focusing on the continuous integration and continuous deployment. So zero human interaction, for example, related to deployment. No need, for example, to deploy or to do any downtime for the deployment. You can just configure Jenkins, created whatever pipeline you need, and after this, actually, everything will be automated for you. With a Puppet, it's agent-based. That's what make actually Puppet, Chef, and Salt. Actually, it's more like hard to use because it's depend on the agent, and it's like focusing on development focus, and it's also it can be used for configuration management. With Chef, it's the same. It's agent based, and it can be used for the development or for the configuration management. With Salt, it can be actually agent or agentless. It's depend actually on the environment that you have, and it's focused more on the admin work, either on premise or on the cloud. So far, like I know, for example, it's like a large portion actually of the DBA work. Okay, so we are talking about, for example, a different things to use. But imagine, for example, if you're gonna like work on the configuration of the operating system, or install Oracle database software, or creation for the database software, or configuration for the database, or update the software or the database. All of this actually, therefore, all of this actually is start to look at one tools, which is Ansible. Ansible will be able to completely automate the boring task for you. As I said, the daily task, it's the boring task is considered for any DBA actually is a boring task. It's work without agent. You don't have actually to deploy any agent. You don't have, for example, to worry if the agent stop working. It's also very easy to use with the infrastructure, as we're gonna see actually in the slides in the front. And also it could be used for to run a different command at one time. So that's why actually why the Ansible it's only need to be like, because it's agentless, it's only should be installed on the server, one server, and after that you will see how it's gonna be work in the front of the slides. As you see here, how Ansible is work. From the graph here, okay, we have a different component for the Ansible. We have the Ansible server, which is contain actually the Ansible management or nodes. It's connected to the inventory, and the inventory itself, it's the file that define the host and the group. Okay, so any comment actually gonna be run, it's gonna be read from over here, from the inventory. This task actually interplay like when you gonna configure anything, okay, in the playbook, okay, the inventory gonna back to the inventory. This file can be actually in one of the many format, depending actually in your Ansible environment or plugin that you want to install. And the default location, okay, for the inventory, it's ATC host, Ansible host. So don't mix actually between ATC host and ATC Ansible host. It's totally different between each other. And also you can create a different project in the inventory if you want actually to organize your work. How it's gonna work actually, as you see here in the inventory, you have, for example, group A, you can tag or hashtag, for example, this by the name of the group of the server that you want to work by the playbook. And with a group B, the same, it's different. You can add any as much as host you can need. With the also, you need to know that it's like the inventory, it's enable you to define a group of the device that's running, for example, with the OS similar like to perform like let's say the same operational and configuration tasks. So for example, if you are managing one or more data center, okay, you can create, okay, Ansible group for these switches or for these servers that requires the same set of the operation, such as, for example, upgrade the operating system, or you need to reboot these devices. You can put them in one group. The playbook, it's the main Ansible configuration. It's responsible for the deployment, and it's like the language, programming language for the Ansible. And they can describe everything in here in the policy that you want, for example, your remote system to run on the server or on the group that mentioned in the inventory. It is set also as a process in the IT in general, as a tool in the workshop, also playbook, also having like a very instruction manual, which is allow you to know how to write the playbook of the Ansible. At the basic level, actually, a playbook can be used to manage configuration and deployment to the remote machine. At the more advanced level, okay, they can also sequence multi-tier rollout involving with updates and, for example, delegate actions to the other host, interacting, for example, and monitor with the server and load balancer and so on. How it's the format with the playbook, it's written by YAML file, okay, or YAML format. And there are the minimum of syntax, which is like, let's say, it tries not to be a programming language or scripting, but it's like a model of configuration of the process. And the documentation, it's describe everything. And I'm going to show you actually like how the playbook, one of the example for the playbook, how the Ansible actually is working. After like you configure the inventory and the playbook, Ansible work by connecting to your node and the pushing like out the small program called Ansible module to each one of them. These programs are written actually to be a resource model of the desired state of the system. So Ansible will execute these modules over SSH, and after it's gonna be run, Ansible itself will remove them. So you will not notice actually anything on the remote server. The library of the modules can reside on any machines. So there are no server, daemon, or database required for Ansible. This is what makes Ansible easy to manage and easy of use. So you will work with your favorite terminal program or text editor or a version for control system to keep track with the changes. Also, the password is supported, but as you see with the SSH key, when you are gonna run, for example, SSH with the agent, the best way to use Ansible through it's to use, for example, a Kerberos. Okay, that's good too. But you have also, this is not the only option. You have a different option also, and you don't need a root login at all when you configure Ansible. Okay, so you can log in with any user. You can create, for example, any user, okay, with a sudo, for example, a privilege or anything, and you can use Ansible for this. After this, actually, you need to know that Ansible does not need any agent, as I already mentioned on the target server. It's all over connected over SSH, and after it's the models of the Ansible has been installed to run the command on the remote server, it will be removed by itself. So you have also like different things, okay, about the Ansible, which is the facts. The facts, like its concept, it's used with Ansible, and it's set of the variable actually for the Ansible. When you are gonna run Ansible on the remote server, it will be collect actually a runtime at the runtime a different variable. These are usable actually with your script when you're gonna run, for example, playbook. You're gonna configure the playbook, such as, for example, the information such as you need for the target host, the IP, the devices, the space, for example. You can even add like more, like for related to the Oracle, which is Oracle Home, for example, or Oracle Base. And with Ansible, you have two level actually, and this is a very important. Like you can use something called ad hoc command line tool. You can use it, and this tool actually will permit with you, so you can run one command line to execute the action. Like for example, if you need to create operating system OS, okay, on multiple server, you don't have, for example, to access to 100 server to create the same user. Okay, and I don't have, for example, also to read here a playbook, okay, just to run one command, okay, or one create user for 100 server. So the ad hoc actually it's a predefined, okay, command line tool by Ansible, okay, and it's allowing me actually to do all of these predefined. Uh, or if you want the more advanced way, which is the playbook, the playbook, it's like I told you, it's a sequence of commands. Okay, it's commands that allow you or allow Ansible to operate what you need on the remote server. So you're gonna tell Ansible in the playbook what to do and what to do or what to install. For example, all of this it's using either in this way or in this way. Just to also like minimize everything, if anyone of you having any question, please send it actually using the chat so I can answer on them. Installing for Ansible is very simple. Okay, it depends on your operating system. It can be installed anywhere. It can be installed actually on the Linux. If you're gonna use Red Hat, it can be installed using yum install Ansible. If you will use using Ubuntu, you can add the repository of the Ansible. Okay, after this, you will update the repository and install Ansible. Or you can use using pip, which is used for Python also, and install Ansible module. Or you can just clone the project itself from the GitHub, and after this, you can run it and source it directly from the GitHub. If you want to get the latest version, I prefer actually to install it using the yum or the apt get, because maybe you will not find actually the latest version on the GitHub. And as I mentioned, since it's using actually like the SSH for the remote connection, it needs to be a passwordless. So you need to configure actually the SSH connectivity between the Ansible server and the remote host, that it should be configured on like on the Oracle server or whatever it's gonna be automated with Ansible. And to minimize actually for the people who does not know pip, the pip it's a common tool. You can install it. Okay, it's used for installing and managing Python packages. If you want to install like a module for Python packages or anything, you using pip. Here we talk about the ad hoc, okay, and we talk about like it's automate a single task. To understand the ad hoc actually, it's automate the single task on one or more managed nodes. The ad hoc commands are quickly and very easy to use, and I'm gonna provide you with the examples now, okay. And as I mentioned, it's used to run, for example, it's predefined, okay. For example, if you need to copy, if you need, for example, to destroy or to do a cron job for multiple server or whatever actually you need, you can refer actually to the Ansible modules for the ad hoc, and you're gonna see how much actually the predefined. I put, for example, here some of the examples down there. You can see, for example, the copy. You can copy a file to multiple server. You can, for example, manage AC2, AWS, or Azure, for example. You can manage the cron tab. You can manage for the parameter for BDDU devices. It's different module, and there are a lot of modules more to install it. You can use the ad hoc actually on these modules, the predefined, so no need actually like to to reconfigure the playbook for this. Let's take an example, okay, using the ad hoc. If I want to reboot server, like imagine if I'm gonna have like 100 server and I reboot all the server in the group called web server. I mentioned that the group should be configured in Ansible inventory over here. So in the inventory, okay, you should be define all the remote server that you want to reboot. Okay, imagine that the group name in the inventory called rebooting. Okay, and I need to reboot like the servers. The group called web server. Okay, so what I have to do, it's run Ansible. Okay, here as you see, Ansible web server, which is the name of the group, and the command which is spell reboot. This is gonna be run on the all remote server. Okay, in the group, in the inventory called the group web server, and it's gonna reboot all the server. This is, for example, for rebooting, for run the command actually on 110 server, on 100 server, okay, using ad hoc. If I need, for example, to manage the file, if I need, for example, to copy one file to 100 server, and for example, imagine if I want to install like databases on 100 server, okay, and I need to copy these 100 server, the file or the database software. Okay, what I have to do, it's using, for example, Ansible. Okay, as you see, Ansible, Atlanta. Atlanta, for example, it's the group name, M, copy, which is the source, okay, where I want to copy to, the destination to where I want to copy. Here, I'm going to copy all the ATC hosts, the file of the ATC host, to temp. The destination is going to be on temp host, to all the group called Atlanta. For example, if Atlanta having 100 server or 200 server, it's going to be actually copied to this group. User, I can create user or a group also. So in case, for example, you're going to install 10 nodes of rack, okay, and you have to do the prerequisites, okay. You don't have, for example, to run the prerequisites one by one on the server. All you have to do is, for example, managing, install Ansible server, okay, manage, configure the Ansible server and using ad hoc, okay. So here, for example, using ad hoc, I can create, manage, and remove the user accounts. For example, Ansible, all, I need to create all, it's like all the group that mentioned in the all. The username, for example, as you see, who, the password for the user, and after this, press enter, and it's gonna be run on all the group. It's called under all group in the inventory for the Ansible. This is actually like examples for the ad hoc. Ad hoc is considered the basic actually for the Ansible. So I'm gonna move to the advanced level, which is the playbook. With the playbook, actually, that include 4 modules you need to understand if you're gonna work actually with a playbook. The first module is called file. It's used to create a home for example, like let's imagine here, I'm gonna talk about one of the example. I will install, for example, Golden Gate installation, okay? So I'm gonna like the second module, so I'm gonna work on, it's an archive, and I'm gonna zip the Golden Gate installation in the directory, for example, called U01 app software, Golden Gate. And after this, okay, I'm gonna create a variable, okay, so in this one, and run the YAML file to install all the Golden Gate for me. So in this, I'm gonna understand actually, if you're gonna see this playbook, the playbook actually gonna look like this, as you see here. I'm gonna have the name of the playbook, which is the Golden installation, the Golden installation having the facts, the host where it's gonna be installed, and so on, the home, the path, and here. Here, as you see, I have a different variable or a different concept for the playbook. The first one, which is the variable. As you see here, the path is mentioned Golden Gate Home. The variable are also, it can be seen in the YAML file. And the variable are like, let's say between, put it between the brackets as you see here. These variable, for example, it's according to the current environment while it's running. So therefore, If you want to the same playbook to can be reused by a different environment, no need actually to keep updating the environment. All you have to do, for example, is such using the variable and can be converted into the variable, such as for like if you want to read the IP, instead of keep putting an instant static IP each time in the playbook, I can use the variable. This can make me the playbook is much easier to use. The rules, so let's say imagine you have created a playbook, okay, which is create a home directory for Oracle and create the OS user and the group, okay, for the standard configuration, for example, for included with the OS parameter and the kernel for the installation for the Oracle packages. So after this, you want to reuse or make this code reusable. To do this, Ansible has the concept is called rule. Rule is a set of modules you have, for example, developed by multiple playbooks. So you can compare them as a function in the programming language, and you can use them like in different way. So as you see here in this one, the playbook actually having a different rule. Okay, two of them, it's called like source, as you see here, CRC, okay, and the last one is executed in the group called replication or replicate. Okay, as I said, okay, the rule are set of the module written in YAML file. For instance, like, or for example, this YAML, like for the golden gate, it's gonna be add the replication on the golden gate, okay. So when I'm gonna write actually the golden gate, I make it much easier using the variable and the rules for me. So here I create, for example, the rules. It's gonna be owner, Oracle user. The group is gonna be Oracle install. The state of the directory, the path, it's a variable as you see here. And under this, okay, as you see, I put all the destination. For example, I create another file of the module of the playbook. I put all the variable inside of it, okay, and I set all the facts to read the variable from it. Here, for example, to understand, for example, what like another example, it's which is use and like Ansible to install database, okay. I'm having like the control server of Ansible, okay. You have to install like the Ansible on it, okay, and I have server 1 and server 2, okay, which is and the DB server. As you see here, this is configured under ATC Ansible host and not under ATC host. So you need to make actually different between each one of them. Okay, in the YAML file in the control server, I have the host where I'm gonna install actually the DB server. As I mentioned, you don't have the root access, but I give you here an example also just to install the root access. I have the rule called software 19C installation, and I have to manage server. I will install actually the database, the software on them. As you see here, this is the YAML file. Okay, I create here the response file for the database. Okay, I create another way. Okay, for the installation, I create the response file of the database, and I create the rule to lead to this response file. This is another way also to use, and I create everything. For example, as you see, the inventory location, the group name, the Linux, the software, the version, the group for the operating system, the backup, for the data guard, everything you're gonna put as a response file as a DBA. So you don't need actually like to keep repeating everything each time. So in this response file, by copying, for example, the response file from the other Oracle home and modify as required. And it's also, you can take the response file from Oracle documentation, okay? With a traditional one, without, for example, you have to enter all of these value manually, okay? And each time you're gonna install the software, you're gonna repeat them, okay, and install them manually on the server with the same formatting. And you have to put, for example, the operating system and repeat, for example, the user and the prerequisite or whatever you're gonna create. With Ansible, it's very simple actually. All you have to do is prepare the YAML file once, and you you can just do it once. This is also another example for YAML file playbook for install the database. As you see, I create here the YAML file called pre-installation for the messages for the database. I'm using here the root user, and you don't need it again at all. The message that gonna appear for the user, which is Oracle Database Software 19C installation, you're gonna create the directory. This is another rule. Okay, and again, the root user, the file, where the file is gonna be, from the items, the set, the directory, the owner. This is all gonna be read from the response file over here. Okay, with the items, the root, the scripts, the Oracle inventory, the Oracle page, the stage directory, all of this actually is a variable. It's gonna be take them from the response file. Okay, after this, I'm gonna copy the 19C packages actually to the target server and start the installation for the 19C. It's very simple, as you see. Okay, for the 19C, maybe you will face an error, same as I faced actually a couple of times while installing this or configure the playbook. Okay, the error, it's saying that the raw module, okay, or it's gonna show you a raw module error. This is related that you don't or you did not install Python on the same server as Ansible exists. This is why I told you here actually to install Python with Ansible, and you can use actually the Python 2.7 or 3. It's depend on what you want or the version that you are using. Also, another example that I can use Ansible with, I can upgrade the database actually with Ansible. So the rule, I can create a playbook. The playbook actually gonna create having a different rule. The different rule will upgrade an Oracle database, and the rule should be divided into the three sections in order. For example, to understand the pre-section, it has to do, for example, the first one, it's a pre-upgrade. The second one, it's the upgrade.yaml and the upgrade. Each one of them is a phase, okay, for Ansible to understand. That's why I said rules. With a pre-upgrade, no downtime if the database in the archive mode, okay, and it should be actually running before 24 hours before the plan of the upgrade. And after this, you need to gonna work like or running the pre-upgrade Oracle scripts, okay. After this, the second one, which is upgrade to YAML. Okay, it's a second playbook actually, or rules. Sorry, it's here you need the downtime, and it's perform like incremental backup and enable the flash backup actually for the database, and create a guaranteed restore point. Just make sure something gonna happen actually, and run a manual database upgrade using Ansible. This gonna take another backup or full backup after the upgrade once the upgrade is completed. Okay, so the final one, which is the upgrade final. In this one actually, or final.yaml. In this one, there's no downtime because the database is already in the archiving mode. It's gonna be run actually after the upgrade to finalize, for example, to delete the restore point of the database after make everything is okay. As you see here, actually, it's very simple. Let's make the upgrade. It's very simple, okay? And you can automate it if you're gonna have a different server, okay, for you. And for example, how I'm gonna use like Ansible with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. With infrastructure, I can use actually Ansible with compute. I can create compute with the databases, with object storage. I can launch a compute instance in the Oracle on OCI, or I can set up also autonomous database. I can, for example, list object and buckets using Ansible. I can delete objects also in using Ansible. It's also having a predefined, okay, modules with for block volume, compute, container engine, databases, file storage, AIM, and load balancing. So you don't have, for example, to rewrite everything. You can use the predefined module for the Ansible. Here, for
Hello,
example,
Osama.
to launch the compute. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we are on time to finish the session.
Oh, okay.
So just 1 minute, please. Osama.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So as I already mentioned, actually here there are different modules for the Ansible playbook, and to jump very quickly, actually, because we are only have a couple of minutes, there are a Terraform. Terraform, it's as I already mentioned, it's infrastructure as code, and you can build your infrastructure with it. Also, the installation of the infrastructure is very simple. I upload like a different example for Ansible and Terraform on my GitHub, as you see here in the corner, in the right one. You can see also, for example, Terraform OCI sample and Terraform for AWS project. It's a complete project. Actually, all you have to do is run the Terraform and read the file, the structure of the file to understand how to use the Terraform. Using Terraform, it's very simple actually. It's having only a couple of commands. Init, plan, apply auto, destroy to destroy everything actually that you build, and destroy force. The structure of the file, there are a variable for the Terraform, and the variable can be used anywhere, the same as Ansible. There are the output, which is from the name. It's useful to display actually the information after you finish. The data source also, it's automatically get the object name or the ID that you need to create the resource. For example, as you see here from the example out there, I put data.oci. So no need every time actually to bring or configure the OCI or the configuration for the my OCI account. This is the best practice for the Terraform. The main I have to have the main.tf file, the variable.tf, outputs.tf, and the Terraform. It's depend on what you want. This is also an example. It's already uploaded to my GitHub. This is also, if you have any question, please drop a question in the chat box. Okay, so I will answer it. Also, if you need anything, like you can contact me on the Twitter, or you can see my blog also on my LinkedIn. And you can also, as I already mentioned, I uploaded before the presentation a lot of the examples on my GitHub using the Terraform and Ansible actually to allow user to understand actually the structure of the Terraform and Ansible itself. Thank you, and thank you to be here.
Thank you, Osama, and thank you all for joining us. See you soon. Gracias a todos.
Thank you.
Y nos vemos hasta pronto. Gracias.
Thank you.